Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Eastern Space and Missile Center and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Today's activities parallel a similar ceremony being conducted at Vandenberg Air Force Base. The transfer of the Eastern Space and Missile Center and the Western Space and Missile Center at Vandenberg Air Force Base from Air Force Systems Command to Air Force Space Command symbolizes the natural evolution of the Air Force's space launch mission from the test and development phase to the operational phase. Air Force Systems Command will relinquish responsibility and command of launch operations to the Air Force Space Command. Also, the 9th Space Division and the 1st Space Launch Squadron will be established. The 65 55th Aerospace Test Group will receive the Air Force Outstanding Unit Award. Lieutenant General Donald L. Cromer, Commander, Space Systems Division, Air Force Systems Command, and Lieutenant General Thomas S. Moorman, Jr., Commander, Air Force Space Command, will officiate at today's historic ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of the official party, the posting of the colors, and the national anthem. Military members render salutes for ruffles and flourishes, and then the national anthem. Post the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated for presentation of the Air Force Outstanding Unit Award to the 65 55th Aerospace Test Group. Department of the Air Force, Special Order Number GB45, dated 23 April 1990. Citation to accompany the award of the Air Force Outstanding Unit Award to the 65 55th Aerospace Test Group. The 65 55th Aerospace Test Group, Eastern Space and Missile Center, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Florida, distinguished itself by meritorious service from 1 November 1987 to 31 October 1989. During this period, the test group was an active leader in the critical National Space Launch Recovery Program initiated after the Challenger and Titan disasters by activating 5 new launch pads, adding 4 new boosters, Atlas II, Delta II, Titan IV, and Centaur, to its fleet, ensuring the commercial launch operations became a reality, and constructing $655 million worth of support facilities. The test group also increased its launch rate from an average of 3 per year to 15 per year, and processed 17 Air Force boosters and upper stages worth $1.2 billion to launch satellites worth over $7.8 billion. The distinctive accomplishments of the members of the 65 55th Aerospace Test Group reflect great credit upon themselves and the United States Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, the men and women of the Eastern Space and Missile Center and the Western Space and Missile Center are about to leave a command they have been a vital component of for 30 years. They look back with fond memories, but they also look forward to many more years of success and significant achievements with the United States Air Force Space Command. Please stand for the Space Launch Transfer Ceremony. The United States Air Force Systems Command is relieved from command of the Eastern Space and Missile Center, Patrick Air Force Base, Florida, and the Western Space and Missile Center, Vandenberg Air Force Base, California, effective 1 October 1990. Ladies and gentlemen, the 9th Space Division will be activated at Patrick Air Force Base to provide command and control for the Eastern Space and Missile Center and the Western Space and Missile Center. The command will be assumed by Brigadier General Jimmy R. Morrell. Attention to orders. Department of the Air Force, Headquarters Air Force Space Command, Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado. Special Order Number GD-028, dated 19 September 1990, subject, 9th Space Division activation. 9th Space Division is activated at Patrick Air Force Base, Florida, and assigned to Headquarters Air Force Space Command, Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado, effective 1 October 1990.
Sir, I assume command.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1st Space Launch Squadron, having been constituted and assigned to Air Force Space Command, is activated at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Florida, and further assigned to Headquarters Eastern Space and Missile Center, Air Force Space Command, effective 1 October 1990.
Sir, please. Thank you, sir. Sir, set command for Space Launch Squadron. Done. Thank you, sir. Post.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I am honored to introduce the Commander of Space Systems Division, Air Force Systems Command, Lieutenant General Donald L. Cromer.
Thank you very much, Mike, and good morning, General Mormon, General Morrell, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It was on September 20th, 1957, the Thor missile was successfully launched 1,300 miles down the Eastern Test Range. This first successful launch began a new chapter in the history of the Air Force, in which the last 33 years have included over 1,000 launches from both the East and the West Coast. And that launch put the Air Force in the space business. Given the experimental nature of this new venture, particularly in the very early years, an overall 89% success rate speaks highly for the professionalism and the dedication of the teams and our people. The launch teams can be justly proud of their work, which has contributed so much to the national security of this nation. But that road to success has not always been even. We have faced major challenges over the years, but none more difficult than the recovery from our space launch capabilities and access to space over the last 4 years. Following the back-to-back launch of 2 Titan 34D failures in '85 and '86, coupled with the Challenger accident, we reached the lowest point in the history of the American space program. Almost immediately, we began a remarkable recovery effort that today has given us an even stronger and more reliable access to space than we have ever had. While many people and organizations were involved getting the work done to get us back into space, most of that fell to the centers here at ESMC and out at Westmic at Vandenberg Air Force Base. The Air Force, led by then Secretary of the Air Force Pete Aldridge, who is in the audience here today, had just gone through a terribly derisive battle with Congress to convince them not to give up all of our expendable launch vehicles. We had just obtained approval for a buy of 10 additional Titan boosters as a hedge against a shuttle outage. In those days, it was known as the Complementary Expendable Launch Vehicle. These 10 boosters then became the base of our space launch recovery effort. In the next few months, we quickly expanded that base to include refurbished Titan IIs and 2 new vehicles, the Delta II and the Atlas II. The buy of 10 Titans, now called Titan IVs, became 23 and ultimately 49. But first, we had to get the Titan 34Ds flying again. Reestablishing a West Coast launch capability was the most immediate task, with the shuttle grounded and the shuttle pad at Vandenberg indefinitely stood down. That second Titan failure had occurred just 8 seconds off the pad and severely damaged both Slick 4 East, the Titan 34D pad, and Slick 4 West, the Titan II pad, Titan Agena pad, In less than 9 months, we had the Titan Agena pad back online. And in February 1987, we resumed launches of that vehicle, reestablishing the confidence in the Titan core vehicle. By that fall, we resumed launches of the Titan 34Ds, 1 out of each coast, and demonstrated that the problem with the solid rocket motors had also been resolved. Since March of 1987, we have had a string of 29 consecutive successful space launches, growing from a low of 3 space launches in 1986 to 10 in 1989. And that string included the first flight of the refurbished Titan II in September of '88, the first Delta II in February of '89, and the first Titan IV in June of '89. Along with the recovery of military space program, the Air Force launch team also helped NASA achieve significant civil space milestones. In 1989, for example, the inertial upper stage sent both the Magellan and Galileo interplanetary missions on their way from the shuttle and injected a NASA tracking and data relay satellite into geosynchronous orbit with pinpoint accuracy that had never been achieved before. These initial successes have indeed continued this year. In fiscal year 1990, the Air Force space launch activity on both coasts consisted of 24 successful launches including the second Titan IV, 6 more Delta IIs, along with other DoD, NASA, and commercial launches. At ESMC, we had scheduled 17 expendable launches, and we have achieved 15 for an all-time high of 88%. The Delta II launch tonight will make that 16 of 17 if General Moorman will give me the privilege of allowing us to call this the 31st of September and take credit for it for accountability purposes. And that will make it a 94% accomplishment. In either case, it's a far cry from the historical 70% that we historically advertise as the launch rate. So we have indeed come a long way. General Moorman, General Morrell, as we transfer space launch operations to Space Command, that is the challenge facing you, to continue that successful record passed on to you today. It is indeed a difficult task that you are inheriting, for as we all know too well, the space launch business is a risky one and very unforgiving when things go wrong. But we are also giving you the means to meet that challenge, for you are also inheriting those same people that brought us back from the dark days of '86 and '87, the same team that set new records in 1990. It is a team that knows its stuff, a team that has been tested and has proven its mettle, a dedicated team of Air Force and industry people that has been through some of the most difficult times imaginable and has succeeded in regaining access to space for our critical national security payloads. It is this legacy that we proudly pass to Space Command today. This transfer of launch operations responsibility to Space Command does not mean that Systems Command is no longer involved. Quite the contrary. We are still very much a part of the team, and there is plenty of acquisition work to be done to continue to build up the launch systems and modernize the launch and the range infrastructure. We still have to deliver hardware that works, be responsible for it until it gets on orbit and gets checked out. We still have to provide the contractor and SPO teams to accompany the hardware, oversee the test and readiness process, resolve anomalies, and support the launches. As we transfer launch operations, we are simply changing the designators of the units and the command affiliations. The job here at the Cape does not change, and certainly the importance to our national security does not change. I am confident that with this new partnership that we have the best team in the world to meet our space launch commitments in the future. I congratulate you on your new organization and command. They stand tall and ready to meet the challenge ahead. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce the Commander of Air Force Space Command, Lieutenant General Thomas S. Moorman, Jr.
Thanks, Mike. General and Mrs. Cromer, General and Mrs. Morrell, men and women of the Eastern Space and Missile Center, distinguished guests, and a special welcome to former Secretary of the Air Force, Mr. Aldridge and Mrs. Aldridge. Mr. Aldridge needs no introduction to this group because, for my money, he is the man most responsible for the resurgence of this nation's military space launch capability. For all of us in the military space business, this morning is indeed a landmark event. Today we begin the formal transfer of launch responsibilities and facilities from the Research and Development Command, Air Force Systems Command, to our operational space arm, Air Force Space Command. I believe this transfer is part of the natural evolution of Air Force space program. It is a testimony to how our thinking about space operations has matured. As many of you know, over the past several years, our leadership has been examining the role of the Air Force in space, as well as that of space in the Air Force. The result of this review is an Air Force policy which has two basic tenets: that the future of the Air Force is inextricably tied to space, and that space power will be as decisive in future conflicts as air power is today. The policy also states that we will make a solid corporate commitment to integrate and normalize space throughout the United States Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, this transfer of launch responsibilities is a tangible result of the Air Force's desire to fulfill those policy objectives. The direction to transfer the launch mission was based on the beliefs that placing satellites into orbit has reached a point where it should be considered an operational task, and that Air Force Space Command has sufficiently matured where it could assume this responsibility. There was also the view that in the future, the key to major improvements in the launch function will be the strong advocacy provided by an operational command. Air Force Systems Command and Space Command have worked hard to make this day possible. Early on, it was mutually agreed that we must be guided by certain precepts. The first, and overwhelmingly the most important, is to sustain the current high level of mission success. Under Systems Command stewardship, and in particular General Cromer's leadership, the Air Force has had 18 successful launches since the Titan accident of April 1986. This is a superb record of achievement and a tough act to follow. Everything Air Force Space Command does at the Cape and at Vandenberg will be aimed at sustaining this mission success rate. Another precept guiding our transfer plans, and a critical factor in continuing to have successful launches, is not to disrupt the ongoing operations. As a consequence, we have decided to transfer the personnel resources along with the launch mission. So today, in addition to witnessing the change of command responsibility, you also see about 2,500 military and civilian personnel change arm patches. Speaking of those people who will change command affiliation, General Yates and I realize that these individuals are indeed a highly trained and very valuable Air Force resource. Consequently, we will be paying a lot of attention to personnel management to ensure that nothing in this launch transfer jeopardizes the careers of those individuals. With those basic precepts as our guide, let me say a few words about Space Command's agenda over the next few years. We plan to upgrade the aging infrastructure at Patrick, Cape Canaveral, and downrange sites to ensure continued successful launch operations. The Air Force leadership also recognizes the need to address the infrastructure, and consequently this area was a high item on the recently completed space investment strategy. I am also committed to sustaining our people's quality of life and enhancing their workplaces. We will have an aggressive maintenance and upgrade plan to properly address these issues. We are making progress in this area as we speak. I see changes on the horizon, the influence of an operating command, in the areas of standardized training, certification, and operability. You will also see changes at Air Force Space Command headquarters. We will become even stronger advocates of new launch systems and range instrumentation. Hopefully you will see the results of our advocacy in the budget process. Air Force Space Command is delighted to be joining the Florida Space Coast. The whole of Brevard County has long been recognized as one of the most supportive communities in the country. We are dedicated to working together to maintain the wonderful military-civilian relationships already in place. A vivid testimony to your warm hospitality and superb quality of life is the number of military people who have retired here. Another commentary on your interest and support is the turnout here today at this ceremony. I really look forward to getting to know each of you and learning how we can help each other. The transfer of launch responsibility from Air Force Systems Command to Air Force Space Command is intended to be virtually transparent to both the users and the operators. That transparency will help guarantee continued smooth operations of launch activities and will establish a foundation for moving forward towards normalizing our military access to space. As we conduct this history-making, passing the baton, on this beautiful Florida morning, I am reminded of the Air Force's rich space heritage. I believe we owe a great debt to the space pioneers of the 50s and 60s who pointed the way to us. We also should recognize the efforts of our current launch community. I congratulate the men and the women of the 6555th Aerospace Test Group on receiving the well-deserved Outstanding Unit Award, and I salute them and their superb contractor support for their accomplishments. We have a busy launch schedule for the remainder of the year. I look forward to tackling with you the challenges of the future as part of the Air Force Space Launch Team. And I conclude with a comment to remind you of the new motto of the 9th Space Division, and that is, "We will succeed." Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending today's ceremony. There will be a reception in the break area immediately following. Now please rise for the departure of our honor party.